Imagine being stranded on a deserted island, with nothing but the sound of crashing waves and the rustle of palm trees to keep you company. The ship you sailed on just days earlier lies wrecked on the nearby rocks, and you are the lone survivor of the crew. With limited resources and no immediate hope of rescue, you are forced to face the ultimate test of resilience. It is your wits and sheer determination that will guide your survival. This is the harrowing reality Pedro Serrano found himself in, a man whose incredible survival story has been passed down for over 450 years. Join us as we delve into Pedro's inspiring battle against starvation, isolation, and the relentless elements of the island. Pedro Serrano. Due to the age of the story, very little factual information is known about Pedro Serrano's early life. What we do know is that, around the mid-16th century, the Spanish sailor embarked on a voyage as part of a merchant vessel crossing the Atlantic Ocean to the New World. What should have been a routine journey soon turned into a nightmare for Pedro. One fateful night, a violent storm struck, tearing apart the ship he was aboard. Everyone on board perished except for Pedro. A powerful swimmer, he managed to reach a small, desolate island off the northeastern coast of South America, miles away from any known shipping routes. While the exact location of this island remains uncertain, many believe Pedro was shipwrecked on Serrano, a small sandy atoll in the Caribbean Sea. When he awoke the following morning, Pedro realized the full gravity of his situation. The island was barren, only some grass and a few sparse trees, and worst of all, there was no fresh water. This made his survival prospects seem even slimmer. Pedro immediately began scouring the island and the nearby coral reefs in search of food, discovering a small group of shellfish. Though he had to eat them raw, they sustained him for a few days. But he knew that if he hoped to survive long-term, he would need a more reliable food source. Then, while exploring a shallow lagoon, Pedro spotted turtles swimming near the shore. He knew that turtles would come ashore at night to lay their eggs, so he hid behind a rocky outcrop and waited in silence. Hours passed, and the air grew thick with tension. Finally, the turtles began to emerge from the water, lumbering onto the beach. Using his precious knife, a tool he had managed to keep from the shipwreck, Pedro killed several turtles. He used their meat to sustain himself and their shells to collect rainwater, a rare but life-saving resource. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Pedro faced the harsh elements with no shelter from the scorching sun or violent storms. He survived on the turtles that came ashore and the rainwater collected in their shells. During these long, lonely months, Pedro searched endlessly for a way to start a fire. A fire would not only allow him to cook his food, but it could also be used to signal passing ships for help. Pedro's island was surrounded by seaweed, driftwood, and remnants of shipwrecks, plenty of potential fuel. But without flint, it was useless. His knife could serve as steel, but finding the right stone was the real challenge. The island was little more than a barren sandbank, unforgiving in its desolation. Determined, Pedro turned to the sea. A skilled diver, he explored the ocean floor, hunting for anything resembling flint. After countless dives, he finally found two stones that seemed to have the right look and feel. With hope rekindled, he brought the stones ashore and ground them together until a sharp edge formed. He had already gathered a pile of dried seaweed, and now, with his makeshift flint and steel, he struck the stones against his knife. After several attempts, a spark flew, igniting the tinder. The fire crackled to life, its warmth and light a small victory against the relentless isolation. For the first time in months, Pedro ate a hot meal, a simple pleasure that reignited his will to survive. The stranger. 3 years passed on the island. By this time, Pedro's clothes had disintegrated and his hair and beard grew long and wild. His body had adapted to the harsh environment, growing a coarse layer of hair that provided some protection from the elements. Pedro often saw ships pass by in the distance, but his signals went unnoticed. The loneliness would have been crushing, and we can only imagine the blurred days, the brief hope when spotting a distant ship on the horizon, and the crushing despair when they sailed on without noticing him. One fateful morning, Pedro was startled awake. His eyes, bleary from sleep, focused on the smoke from his campfire, and what he saw nearly stopped him in his tracks, a human face staring back at him through the haze. The man was a fellow Spaniard. He had been shipwrecked the previous night and survived by clinging to a piece of driftwood until he reached the island. As the stranger approached, both men were gripped by fear. The newcomer was unnerved by Pedro's disheveled and primitive appearance, and Pedro, wild from years of isolation, feared he might be seeing an apparition. In their panic, both men turned and ran, each assuming the other was a trick of the devil. Pedro, in his desperation, cried out to the heavens for protection. Hearing Pedro's cries, the stranger stopped, recognizing the language and the desperation in Pedro's voice. "Brother," he shouted, "don't run away from me. I am a Christian, as I believe you must be." The recognition of each other's humanity allowed the two men to settle into a new routine together. They split the daily tasks, keeping the fire burning, gathering seaweed, fishing, and collecting driftwood. With the combined strength of two men, they were able to catch larger turtles, ensuring a more reliable food supply. As the years dragged on, the two men often watched ships pass on the distant horizon, their hearts sinking each time their smoke signals went unnoticed. But then one day, a vessel ventured closer than any before. The men scrambled to build up their signal fire, and this time, they were finally seen. A small boat broke off from the ship and headed toward the island. Wild with excitement and desperation, Pedro and his companion raced across the beach to meet their rescuers. At first, the sight of two ragged wild men charging toward them caused the sailors to pause in terror, thinking they had encountered something monstrous. But Pedro and his companion shouted in Spanish, trying to reassure them. Eventually, the sailors realized they were not wild men but fellow Spaniards who had endured years of isolation. Pedro and his companion were taken aboard the ship, which was bound for Spain. There, Pedro recounted his miraculous survival story of 7 years on a desolate, barren atoll. Sadly, the years of hardship had not been so kind to his companion, who did not survive the voyage home. Now alone once more, Pedro carried the weight of their shared ordeal and the haunting memories of their struggle to survive. Upon returning to Spain sometime after 1550, Pedro was reunited with his family, who had long believed him to be lost at sea. He continued to tell his incredible tale of survival for the rest of his life, a testament to human resilience against overwhelming odds. Pedro Serrano's story is a chilling reminder of the fine line between life and death, and the extraordinary lengths a person can go to survive. His tale, preserved in the Royal Commentaries of Peru by Garcilaso de la Vega, remains a timeless testament to human endurance and the will to live even in the face of overwhelming adversity.